Okay, so we're going to explain why the measure of angle 1 is greater than the measure of angle 2. We're going to use a couple of things. We know that exterior angles, like the one that we're looking at for number 1 here, are always going to be greater than the sum of the two remote interior angles here and here. We know that both of those angles, 3 and 4, have to be positive numbers. They have to be angles that measure some positive number of degrees. So we use the comparison property of inequality, which says that if A, or in this case 1, is equal to B plus C, or in this case is equal to 3 plus 4, and the measures are both positive, 3 and 4 are both positive, then we know that angle, in this case 1, is going to be greater than either one of these, either 3 or either 4. So we know that 1 is greater than 3 and 1 is greater than 4. We also know that through the vertical angles theorem that 2 is equal to 3. So because we know this, we know that the measure of angle 1 is greater than the measure of angle 3. We also know that the measure of angle 2 is equal to the measure of angle 3. So using the substitution property, we can then conclude that the measure of angle 1 is greater than the measure of angle 2. What we did there is we just substituted in measure of angle 2 where we had the measure of angle 3 up here since they're equal. Substitution property. So that's how we know. We know that an exterior angle is greater than the sum of the remote interior angles. So we know that measure of angle 1 is going to be greater than, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. We know that the measure of angle 1 is equal to the measure of the remote interior angles and greater than either individual angle. And so we know that we can state that then the measure of angle 1 is greater than the measure of angle 3 and substitute since 2 and 3 are equal. Okay, that's number 6. Number 8, excuse me, same idea. We know that the measure of angle, we know that the measure of angle 1 is going to be greater than the measure of either one of the remote interior angles. And I'm going to say greater than the measure of angle 4. Okay, and there's a reason why I'm saying this. So we know that angle 1 has a greater measure than angle 4 does. Why do we say that? Because if you'll notice this, when these two lines are parallel, and they are, then these two angles are called alternate interior angles. Here is the transversal cutting those two parallel lines, and so the alternate interior angles are congruent. So we know, we can state then that the measure of angle 4 is equal to the measure of angle 2. And then using substitution again, we can say, okay, therefore the measure of angle 1 is greater than the measure of angle 2. All I did here is I took two things that were equal, measure of angle 4 and measure of angle 2, and so I substituted one for the other. Okay, so now we know that the measure of angle 1 is greater than the measure of angle 2. Done.